What's up, everyone? Ben with the BTC Sessions here, and this is your daily session.
Hodl that Bitcoin.
Before diving in here, of course, shout out to sponsors of the show, Ledn.io. This is where you can use your Bitcoin for a couple of different services. The first of which is a Bitcoin savings account where you can earn Bitcoin on your Bitcoin. And the second of which is a Bitcoin-backed loan. So you can use your Bitcoin as collateral to get a Canadian or US dollar loan. So both of those services, I've got a link down below if you want to check them out. And if you opt to get the loan option, they will credit your account with an additional $50 worth of Bitcoin. And secondly, if you're into Bitcoin, then privacy is important. I use Noir VPN on my phone and my computer to help with that. And essentially what it does is it hides your IP address, it encrypts your browsing data, it has the added benefit of unlocking geoblock content. And you know, if you ever dabble in torrents, it's not a bad idea to also have NordVPN running. I wouldn't know because, of course, I've never used torrents in my life. But if you want to check out the link down below, the link will get you a deal for $3 a month. And with that, let's move into the news. Everybody panic! The price, it's going crazy. No, don't panic. I'm not panicking. I'm very content, very relaxed through all of this, which is refreshing because this is my second bear market. And, you know, with time, you just kind of get jaded to these crazy moves in the Bitcoin price. So this is a fun little guide. It's Don't Panic, the Hitchhiker's Guide to Bitcoin Fundamentals. So, I mean, if you survived through all of late 2018, well, all of 2018, but especially late 2018, and you've made it this far, you're probably fine. You're probably good to go. I mean, you might be a little wary. You probably don't want to see 3K again, but if you made it this far, you're doing okay. So far, congratulations, those that have stuck out the bear market and survived unscathed. But this is just a fun little breakdown. Let's go through a few of the points to give you a cooler head, to calm yourself through these fluctuations. Again, keep in mind that we started the year closer to 3K. So we're still doing pretty well. So let's look at some fundamentals. So this is a graph of the 365 daily moving average of the number of transactions on the Bitcoin network. Looks like we're at an all-time high. So yeah, doing well in that department here. Again, we're going to take a look at some of the, what about the hash rate? The hash rate, yeah, there was a big there was a scare the other day when it came to the hash rate, and it dipped way low, and everybody is freaking out. Turns out it did not dip way low. It's just kind of an aggregate average of how quickly blocks are being mined. And so if a block, it takes a little bit longer to mine, then it looks like the hash rate has dropped, but realistically that tends not to be the case. So we're back at all-time highs for that. A few other fun things here. What about the supply? You know, did anything change there? Is the supply suddenly being inflated like crazy, like the Fed dropping hundreds of billions of dollars in the past week and a half, 2 weeks on the markets? No, hasn't changed. Still right on schedule. Every 10 minutes, 12.5 Bitcoin being created, and the halving hits in May. So great, that gets reduced to 6.25. It'll be, you know, down from 50 Bitcoin every 10 minutes. So it continues to drop. And keep in mind, when that halving hits, for the first time, Bitcoin's inflation rate drops below that of the target inflation rate of the Fed, 2%. And it's also the first time that the stock to flow ratio will be smaller than that of gold. So something to consider. What else do we have here? Yeah, just a few external things. Again, like the Federal Reserve hasn't gotten its act together. We've seen that. There's nothing that they've done to suddenly go, oh, well, we actually don't need Bitcoin anymore because we have sound money. We don't. And again, there continues to be incredible developments on Bitcoin. People are still working and plugging away. So when you see fluctuations like this, you need to think to yourself, why did I get into Bitcoin in the first place? What value did I see there? And has that changed? Or am I just getting panicky because the number has dipped a little bit? It's easy to have a high time preference and look at tiny windows of time, but when in doubt, zoom out. The longer time horizons are your friend because it gives you a better picture of where we've been and where we may be headed. And due to this little dip, I believe right now, let's just take a quick look where we're at the time of recording this. We likes to take its time. Yeah, we are just below 8K, so we're in the 7,900 USD range. I like to add a couple things here though, because it gives you some insight into the alt market. So price in Bitcoin and 24-hour change versus Bitcoin. I also like to throw in, by the way, this is a great website if you're ever on it, Masari.io, and this is their on-chain effects section. But I like to throw in like a 7-day change versus Bitcoin, a 30-day change versus Bitcoin, the 90 and the 1 year, because it gives you a better picture of what's happening to the alts too, and it might make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. So again, yes, we are down 5% versus the US dollar in 24 hours. But let's look at some of the changes versus Bitcoin. Some coins are up 24 hours versus Bitcoin, others are down. But when you start to zoom out a little bit, this is where you start to see, and we can ignore Tether because it's essentially US dollar, right? But when you start to zoom out, you start to see it's a bit of a bloodbath when it comes to alts. There's some outliers, but by and large, yeah, they're not doing so hot, especially in the long term. Down 60%, down 60, 24, 60. Somehow BNB eked out a gain there, but again, not much of that. So you can see versus the US dollar, right around this time 3 months ago was kind of that peak, that $13,000 peak that we got to. So that's why this number is so high right here. But then if you move to a year, we're still, again, US dollar has lost 20% versus Bitcoin. So in the long run, I'm very relaxed. So I've been stacking sats the last couple of days given the lower prices. I thought it was a great opportunity, and I've been doing it on Bull Bitcoin. So if you're in Canada, be sure to hit them up because it is a no bullshit, no altcoin way to stack sats in Canada. It's pretty simple. You can do e-transfers and wire transfers and Flexipin vouchers, which is kind of the more, you don't have to provide as much identification and stuff with Flexipin, but with the banking you do. But it's simple. Yeah, you put in the amount. You have to provide a Bitcoin address because it's non-custodial. They never hold your coins for you. And then, yeah, you create an order and it gets sent out pretty much right away, as long as you have some dollars in your account. And that's it. So yeah, there's a link down below if you want to check it out. And one other note on the price, a little insight into why there may have been this sizable dip the past couple days. Well, in the next few days here, there's the Bitcoin futures markets where people can speculate on the future price of Bitcoin. And so the CME is a group that launched futures a couple years back, almost a couple years back, about a year and a half. And there's a bunch of contracts that end up settling tomorrow on Friday. And so what does that mean? Well, if some of those contracts were set to assume that Bitcoin's price was going to be below a certain amount, there may be a lot of people that are trying to manipulate the price down so they don't get absolutely wrecked tomorrow for the settling of these contracts. In fact, 50% of all of the contracts on the CME will settle tomorrow. So everybody's super stoked for institutions to come in, but this is what you get when institutions come in. People start playing games like this, and I wouldn't be super surprised if after the CME settled, we started to see a bit of a rebound because people made their money on that dip because they were betting it wasn't going to be so high. So, and in fact, Bitcoin tends to drop. This is the major headline to pay attention to here. Bitcoin tends to drop 75% of the time before futures expire. So people betting on the futures have been kind of bearish in general, and so they'll try and manipulate the price down before the contracts expire. In the future, that may be different. Maybe in a crazy bull run, they're going to be expecting it to continue to go up, and if it doesn't, they may buy to manipulate it up. So I guess it just depends where the majority of the contracts lie. But yeah, institutions, there you go. Speaking of banking and traditional banking and all of that kind of traditional finance realm, banking has not been very friendly to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency related industries and companies. There's not a whole lot of banks globally that actually accept cryptocurrency related companies, including really any exchanges, anything that has to do with cryptocurrency. There's a quote here: there are fewer than 10 banks on the entire planet that are crypto friendly. I don't know. I think it's been opening up a little bit more than that. Probably credit unions and stuff like that account for way more, but large banks, yeah, that could be pretty accurate. Anyways, so there's a new bank launching called the new Medici Bank. And so their goal is to take on a lot of tech-based, but primarily cryptocurrency and Bitcoin-based businesses. So they want to be the crypto-friendly solution so that those new companies can get banking in the traditional finance world, which is great, and I like that. Now, when I was looking at this article and reading a bit more into it, it seems like they are... Yeah, their optimism is a tad misplaced. Now, I have no doubt that there'll be a ton of people that want to capitalize on this opportunity. A lot of exchanges and even small Bitcoin ATM operators and people like that that need banking that may go to a bank like the new Medici Bank so that they don't have to worry about getting shut down because they're dealing with Bitcoin or other currencies. But they are trying to be the alternative to the current financial system, and they're trying to do some weird interoperable blockchain thing across continents and across countries for transferring funds. And they've got this weird kind of assumption that they're going to have an immutable blockchain backing everything, but it doesn't seem like they fully thought through the logistics of how that works. And I do tend to question the need for that in the future, right? Like, because it's kind of self-defeating. The whole idea of if Bitcoin succeeds, then you have seamless kind of peer-to-peer payments globally, right? Especially when you factor in things like Lightning Network and other advancements that make it easy to transact quickly and for any amount. And so these guys are coming from the aspect of, hey, we're going to be the new banks that we tear down the walls. But in a world where Bitcoin succeeds, you don't need those banks to have custody. We see a lot of platforms coming out that are doing interest and loans, and obviously those things carry risk, and some people want to take risk and others don't. And so there will be a place for stuff like that if people want to use it and they see value in it. But in custody, when it comes to banking, I feel like that's kind of an endeavor that will be a losing one over time. Because why do you need cross-border bank transfers when you can just do that yourself? I can see the need for shared custody or multi-sig custody, things like what Casa is doing with Keymaster, where they hold one of the keys of a multi-sig, and they're kind of like a signer of last resort. I see some value in that, where people are worried about losing their own keys. But the traditional banking model, like what these guys seem to be going after, I don't think it's going to hold up in the coming couple of decades. And so if they're just launching now, I feel like they're launching the crypto version of traditional banking, and they're either going to have to pivot and start changing the services that they offer, or they're going to go down with the ship. So anyways, that's my hot take. Let me know what you think about the idea of crypto-friendly banking. And I hate using the word crypto. Well, Bitcoin-friendly banking. Let me know what you think of that. Let me know what you think of them using blockchain in the background, or is that just kind of buzzwords that are not being thought through? Okay, moving on here. Only reporting part of your crypto addresses, the IRS needs to know. So what's going on here? Well, a few months ago, the US IRS sent out about 10,000 letters to different cryptocurrency users and Bitcoin users that have been on exchanges and buying, and they believe that they have not reported gains and so on and so forth. And they asked them to send in amended records of what they've been doing with their currency and any gains. And anyways, so why is this an issue? Why are there these requests? Well, I mean, the IRS, they paired with what are they? Chainalysis is the company. Yeah, Chainalysis. And so that's a blockchain analytic company that can look at the blockchain and kind of see transfers and link it to exchanges and link it to names. And if they can pull info of this was a certain person's account, like, so they submitted a request to Coinbase for 14,355 users that may have not reported. And so they got the records of those particular individuals and were able to see, okay, well, this person made these purchases here and then withdrew. And then they can see, especially on things like the Bitcoin blockchain and a lot of other cryptocurrencies, because Coinbase doesn't allow you to have anonymous withdrawals. So they can then track on the blockchain where your money is going and if it's being intermingled. So there's a few things to note here. So you can connect addresses to one another. So you're on Coinbase. I hope you're not, but you're on Coinbase, for instance. You make a Bitcoin buy. You withdraw cryptocurrency to a Bitcoin address. You are now holding that Bitcoin in a particular address, but then you've got this other account, this other Bitcoin address that has coins that were neglected to be reported. Well, let's say that you spend some Bitcoin and put it into this wallet, and then you spend again and it goes out. Well, they can track the fact that these coins moved over here, they were commingled with some other coins and spent to another address. And if you spend them at a merchant perhaps that does not, or that requires any sort of identification, or perhaps ships an item to your house, then again, that's a data point that it stands to reason that those coins that were intermingled there were all belonging to you along the way. So there's a way of, beyond a reasonable doubt, proving that you own X amount of coins. And so that's where some of these letters are coming from. When they're working with Chainalysis, they can kind of piece together who owns what. And that's why they're saying, hey, did you forget something here? The difficult part about this is, God, a few years back, who was tracking what, right? And how many exchanges have gone defunct? How many times have people used a wallet and then sent it to a new wallet, deleted the old seed, and then you have zero record of what happened there? And imagine trying to parse through the blockchain and see old transactions and go, what was that? And who was that? And is that mine? Or did I send it to somebody else? Did I send somebody a few dollars and now I'm looking at their balance and what am I seeing? It's a real clusterfuck, and I don't know quite how that's going to be dealt with, because in some ways, yes, you can prove ownership at some links along the way, but there's probably a lot of points where there's just giant question marks. Like, was that mine? And how do you prove that it was, or how do you prove that if you just don't know. A lot of people just will not have a clue what happened where. And yeah, so I guess they can also look at exchanges where you cashed out. So that's an easy way where they can say, well, look, you took out $10,000 here and that wasn't reported. And clearly you made it from gains in cryptocurrency. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. What I'm very curious about is how are they going to deal with things like somebody withdraws directly to like a Wasabi wallet and mixes those coins? How are they going to deal with somebody mixes coins and then funds a Lightning Network channel and then transacts on the Lightning Network, which is basically all completely obfuscated and Tor routed and impossible to see, and then like all of that, the entire Lightning Network, you cannot see what's happening there. You can see the channels being funded and closed, but also if those are over Tor and if those are funded by coin-joined coins, I really don't know how they're going to deal with that. And I feel like it's a losing battle in the long run, but right now there are those data points. And so I guess what I'm saying in general is, I don't know. How are you dealing with this? I think a lot of people neglected to bother taking any sort of records back in the day. A lot of people wrongly assumed that Bitcoin was anonymous. And so it will be very, very interesting to see what happens in the future here. Let me know, or don't, what you're doing in regards to this. And one last little note here. This is just kind of a footnote at the end of this episode, but Facebook's Libra coin seems to be questioning how soon it will launch. There was kind of a projected launch date. It seems like that's being kind of pushed. I'm very much doubtful that Libra is going to launch, and if it does, I think it's going to be very neutered compared to what they wanted to do. So a few quotes from Zuckerberg and some of the guys over at Libra. Obviously, we want to move forward at some point soon and not have this take many years to roll out. But right now, I'm really focused on making sure that we do this well. So alluding to, we don't want it to take many years, but we want to do this right. They were originally planning for 2020. That's coming up pretty quick. And the response from the Senate and from other world governments has not been great. And it's essentially, there's a number of countries that said, we're just going to full on block it. Libra is not allowed here. So I get what they were trying to do. I don't think it's going to work because they've just, rather than coming out the gate and saying, hey, we're doing a stable coin, and then saying, hey, we're doing a stablecoin pegged to something different, and then saying, hey, we're going to basket those together after, rather than taking those little steps that would have not raised red flags out the gate, they just came all out and they're like, hey, we're going to do a free-floating currency that's a mix of a whole bunch of other fiat currencies in a basket together, and it will be interoperable with anybody and uncensorable. And governments of the world were like, oh, you've got a reach of a couple billion users? Oh my God, we have to deal with this quickly. So I'm going to place my bet right now and say that Libra does not launch in its current state, and that it will launch, but in limited capacity, in limited jurisdictions, in a couple of years. That's my guess, but we'll see. We'll see. What do you think? Do you think Facebook's ever going to launch Libra? I also wouldn't be opposed to believing that it's not going to launch at all. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit like and subscribe. And of course, everybody hit that share button. It's always nice to get new eyeballs on the show. If you want to help out the show in another way, those two sponsors that I mentioned before, Ledn and Noir, those are down below. And feel free to check out Bull Bitcoin as well. And if you really like what you saw, you can drop me a Bitcoin tip via the Lightning Network at my tippin.me page. With that, I am out. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I will see you tomorrow for your daily session.